Trent, thanks for coming on and talking to me this morning. So I want to first tell me more about what went into your decision to run for District 3 there in the State Senate. That was after State Senator Robert Nichols announced he wouldn't run again.
That's right. With Senator Nichols' retirement or announced retirement, it opened the door here for an open seat, Senate seat here in East Texas. And as someone that is from East Texas, born and raised in the area, and as a current member of the Texas House, I was encouraged to take a look at this seat, potentially to make a run. And after giving considerable thought and prayer, I decided that the time was right for me to make a move and to run for the Senate. So we've been on this journey of campaigning around these 18 counties in East and Southeast Texas over the last, 8 months now. And I've been very encouraged with the response, and I'm very excited about the upcoming election.
Yeah, so what are the issues that are the most important to you right now as we speak going into this March primary? And also, part two with that, the most important things that you think are going to decide this race if you win the March primary and then going into November?
Sure. Well, there's no question as I've traveled around the district, the number one issue by far and away is property tax relief and reform. And so I've been spending a lot of time talking with different groups at different forums, of course, one-on-one with individuals just around the district about what specifically the state should be doing, the legislature in particular should be doing to provide additional property tax relief. And I think it would be accurate to state that you will see the legislature continue, I think, to focus on providing Texans with an opportunity to increase their homestead exemptions. I think it's very likely you'll see the legislature continue to compress or buy down school district maintenance and operation taxes. But I think what really we need to be focused on this next session is appraisals. Typically what I hear is, Trent, we appreciate what you've done in Austin on one side of the equation, but every year when I get my property tax bill, we have these skyrocketing property valuations. And so I think it's high time the legislature takes action. Specifically, I like Governor Abbott's idea of rolling back the cap on how much property valuations can increase during a year from 10% to 3%. I think that has a lot of merit. I also think that the current system that we work under, which we have had in place for several decades now, where most people think their local appraisal districts set their property values. And that's partly true, but in reality, there's a component to this where Austin, through the controller's office, they conduct every 2 years what they call the property valuation study for every school district in the state. And then they assign a number to what they believe those local valuations should be. And I just believe that's a broken system. I believe that Austin should not be telling our East Texas counties what their local property valuations should be. And I've you have to run into anybody that think that that's a good idea. So there's a lot of I think things the legislature can look at on the appraisal side of the equation that would provide what I think would be meaningful property tax relief. Hopefully, over a period of time, leading to school district property tax elimination. But I think we've really got to take a hard look at the appraisals next session. And that's certainly something that I'm going to champion and take a lead on.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a hot topic in 2027. So I'm sure, as you know, healthcare is growing rapidly here in East Texas. And in Cherokee County, that's one of the areas you're going to be representing if you win this race. In Jacksonville, particularly, is now building a 30,000 square foot medical facility there for residents. How important is continuing to grow the medical industry here in East Texas? What do you think about that, and what would you maybe try to focus on in the future to continue keeping, especially doctors and nurses and other important medical students here in East Texas instead of getting out of the area, maybe going to places like Dallas, Houston, stuff like that?
Nolan, that's such an important issue. I currently represent 6 rural counties that touch Cherokee County. And since I've been in office, I have always focused on this challenge that we face in rural East Texas in terms of having a viable healthcare delivery system. It is a struggle in rural counties across the nation, not just in East Texas. But I'm so excited to hear the plans for what is being proposed for Cherokee County. Um, I, I hope that we can continue to see that expansion of rural healthcare delivery across other East Texas counties, and I think we will. This last session, I was really proud of voting for and supporting and co-authoring actually several bills that are helping to provide a more robust healthcare system in East Texas. I'm loving the partnerships that I'm seeing between the UT health system and, of course, now Stephen F. Austin State University, which is part of the UT system. I love what they're doing in terms of preparing students for great careers, lifelong careers in different medical fields, especially when it comes to nursing, where we face a critical shortage here in East Texas. I love the pipeline that we're building between UT Health Northeast and S. Stephen F. Austin. But I think we've got to continue. While there are exciting things going on, Nolan, and certainly the issue in Cherokee County is something that we should all be proud of, but we can't stop there. There's a lot of counties in Deep East Texas in particular that I represent. I know up in Northeast Texas, in your viewership area, that really struggle with healthcare. And specifically, I think the state's got to continue to look at our Medicaid reimbursement rates that we provide for providers to make sure that we're able to keep our doors open at our rural hospitals and our clinics that serve such a vital need for rural East Texans. And so this issue that we're talking about right here is also a top priority for my next session, to make sure that we have a robust healthcare delivery system and that you don't have to drive to bigger cities like Houston or Dallas or over to the I-35 corridor. We have a lot of people that are moving into East Texas, and I think we're going to continue to see an expansion of our healthcare delivery systems throughout the entire region.
Yeah, so I'm sure you're, well aware of the water fight that's going on across East Texas. I'm not sure exactly how much of that is in Deep East Texas, but it's still going to be part of your coverage area if you would win this race. With District 3 in particular, how would you make sure that this critical resource in East Texas stays in East Texas and it's not being put to other areas like Dallas and other big parts of our state, to make sure it stays here for years to come?
Yeah, I think when you talk about regional issues for East Texas, I think this is at the top of the list. I represent Houston County right now, which is one of those three counties that were part of that proposed project by the wealthy investor out of Dallas that would basically siphon our groundwater and move it to either the I-35 corridor or the DFW Metroplex. And so, I've been in the middle of that fight. I was in Jacksonville last summer, right after we got out of regular session, to publicly express my opposition to that plan. When the local groundwater district held their public hearing there, I have been proud to stand with State Representative and Chairman Cody Harris, who represents the other two counties that are part of this boondoggle to steal our groundwater here in East Texas. And so I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I believe this is probably the most pressing issue for East Texas as I look at next session. And as a member of the House Natural Resources Committee, over the course of my career, I have always, fought tooth and nail to protect our water, both surface water and groundwater in East Texas. And while we've had a lot of success in protecting it, the reality is the battleground has somewhat shifted now to groundwater. And so whether you're in a groundwater conservation district county or not, we have got to put laws in place that protect those folks that live in the areas where that groundwater is located. It's that simple. And when a groundwater conservation district, which we have quite a few of in East Texas, when they don't have the authority to outright deny or reject an export permit application for groundwater that would essentially deplete our aquifer, then we've got a real problem. That just doesn't make sense. And so at the very least, I think the legislature is going to have to strengthen our groundwater laws to allow us to our local governing authorities to be able to dismiss those type of projects out of hand. And then for those counties that don't have GCDs, we're going to have to make sure that we're striking the balance between protection of private property rights, which I will take a backseat to no one for fighting for private property rights, but at the same time making sure that someone that owns property can't extract all or the majority of groundwater beneath the surface in those counties that don't have a GCD. So this is going to be a major issue. I think it's going to be a major fight next session, and we've got to have a state senator that's willing to lead the effort and make sure that we're protecting our natural resources.
Yeah, so in Lufkin and Anderson County, the area you would also be representing if elected to District 3. So, Stuart, we've been also following, I'm sure you're aware of it, but I still wanted to ask the question, is the fight over a proposed replacement electric substation from Encore. Residents there have also raised major concerns to us over declining property values and quality of life impacts if this station would actually be built in the years to come. So a special permit for it was recently denied during a recent council meeting that was about, I think, 2 weeks ago. Encore now plans to appeal that decision if they want, which they have said they're going to. I'm guessing you have heard of this. If not, what's your take on it? And if you have, of course, what's your take on it? And do residents have a point for being concerned about this proposed substation?
Well, the issue of replacement of the Encore substation in Lufkin is a local issue. I mean, that's going to be decided by the local city council here in Lufkin, which is my hometown where I live. I'm somewhat familiar with the topic, but I certainly have not been engaged on it as I've been on the campaign trail and quite frankly, not in Lufkin a lot these days. But look, I don't know a lot about the issue. I haven't talked to anybody from Encore about the issue, so I don't know exactly what their proposal would be. I have had some of my friends that live in that subdivision that would be adjacent to this proposed project expressed to me their concerns, and I think again, as if I were a local elected official, you're elected to listen to the concerns of your residents, and of course, listen to the other side as well. So, I'm aware that the city council rejected that application. I was actually unaware that Encore is going to appeal that. But there's got to be a balance. Of course, you have to have reliable electricity and power. But at the same time, I do think it's very important that our local elected officials listen to the concerns of their constituents and the citizens in that area.
I wanted to ask about this too. In Nacogdoches County, back in November, voters approved that new $75 million bond to construct a new county jail there as a way to address overcrowding, outdated infrastructure, they say, and rising costs. Was this the right decision by voters signaling that it's time for this brand new facility with all these concerns? I know Nacogdoches County Sheriff Jason Bridges said to us, quote, "It's not a want by any means, it's a need." It seems like they're going to get it now. Have you been to that jail? And do you think this new bond is absolutely necessary to get this up and running to address all those issues?
Well, of course, the bond elections are local elections, and I don't live in Nacogdoches County, so but I do follow it. It's obviously adjacent to my home county here in Angelina, and I have visited the jail in Nacogdoches, as well as I was visiting the newly opened expanded jail in Angelina County when Sheriff Bridges came to Lufkin to look at what they had done here as far as their jail expansion, to get some ideas for what they should do in terms of their design concept in Nacogdoches. So I am somewhat familiar with the proposed project. Personally, I know that Nacogdoches, according to Sheriff Bridges, that they were out of space. And as I recall, that bond election passed with a more than 2-to-1 margin there in Nacogdoches County to support the expansion of that jail. So, look, I'm never going to second guess or question the will of local voters. Clearly, this is something the citizens of Nacogdoches felt very strongly about. Personally, as a citizen and as a lawmaker in Austin, I feel very strongly about public safety. And I've always tried to be a leader on our public safety issues in Austin to, whether it was Senate Bill 22 to provide our sheriff offices with additional resources from the state level to allow them to hire additional deputies, as well as get additional training and equipment for their departments. I think it's important that we should support our sheriff's department, and whether it's Sheriff Bridges in Nacogdoches County or any of the 18 sheriffs in Senate District 3, I'm always going to be responsive to law enforcement, and I'll have their back.
So switching over to more specific stuff in your campaign, what do you make? I know you were asked about this a little bit ago from an article I was reading. What do you make in some of the things your opponent has been putting out in District 3, I'm pretty sure, accusing you of supporting policies of radical Islam. I know you addressed it on a Facebook post I read about a week ago there on Facebook. You said with that, quote, my opponent has launched desperate and misleading attacks to distort my record. So can you set the record straight on what you've done in the past? And also, why do you think she's intentionally doing this? I'm sure it's obvious because she's trying to win a campaign, but just can you talk about some of those points there in that question?
You bet. I'm happy to set the record straight here, and it is so true, and it's common sense for most people, and it really does. It's sad, but when you're behind in an election and during a campaign season, so many times candidates resort to mudslinging, negative attacks, character assassination, the concept you have to tear someone down to build yourself up. And it is unfortunate that my opponent has completely and grossly misrepresented my voting record. The issue you cited with saying that somehow I'm supporting Islam. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm a man of deep faith, and I've always stood tall for my Christian values, both in Austin and here at home, and I'll never back down from that. But for there to be an ad running that said that somehow I supported three bills that recognized a Muslim holiday is really asinine. Because if you go and check the record, and this is what I put in that Facebook post and what I have put out to set the record straight, there were never any votes on the three bills that were cited. These were ceremonial resolutions that don't have any practical effect of law, that were on a local and consent calendar. Again, there is no record vote on these bills. And for her to insinuate that I voted for these bills is just a gross misrepresentation of reality. And it's not true. And so the good news is most people that have seen that, one, they're just turned off because they know it's not true. I mean, the notion that an East Texas lawmaker would be promoting, or the concept of expanding radical Islam is beyond the pale of belief. And so it's unfortunate that I've had to set the record straight and that she's resorted to these tactics. But again, that's what you find when you have a candidate that's running behind, is they resort to this type of mudslinging and just outright lies. And so that's what we're dealing with right now as we wrap up this campaign over the next 2 weeks, is just basically, setting the record straight and telling voters the truth. And that's what they want. Voters are smart. They can see through these deceptive ads. And, the reality is, I've never had to run a negative campaign, but I do occasionally set the record straight, which we've done on this issue. And I've also, highlighted the fact that she's only able to run these ads against me because she has a single donor that has given her $2 million. And it is the single largest donation that we can find in the history of anybody running for the state Senate. And so, I just think that it's important that we have a state senator that, one, is going to tell the truth, that is going to run on character and integrity and not be beholden to one donor, that is always going to be beholden to the voters of East and Southeast Texas. And I'm the Senate candidate that will always do that.
Any other issues you might have not mentioned right now here in East Texas that you want to focus on come 2027 if you're elected to District 3 in the state Senate?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that when you get to Austin in the legislature, one of the things that you learn is that so much of your ability to effectively represent your district is based on your relationships and your reputation. And I think that East and Southeast Texas, overwhelmingly the feedback I get is, Trent, we need a senator that can hit the ground running on day one. We need someone that has those relationships, that knows all 149 other House members, that knows all 31 senators, that has a great constructive working relationship with the governor and the lieutenant governor and our other statewide elected officials. And so that is a big part of what I'm running on, is my experience, my track record of delivering the conservative results I think that people in East Texas would expect of their state representatives and their state senator. And lastly, Nolan, I would mention rural values. Senate District 3 is largely a rural district. And as someone that has always fought for rural interests and our rural values, I think that's so important that we have someone in Austin that understands rural, that's from rural, that is protecting agriculture and forestry and our small businesses and the energy sector and our public schools, our rural healthcare delivery system that we talked about earlier. We've got to have someone, in my opinion, that understands these issues and has the relationships and the experience and the proven track record of delivering those results in Austin. And I'm proud to be and excited to be in this race. And I certainly look forward to the March 3rd election and the opportunity, hopefully, to be the next state senator from Senate District 3.
And finally, Trent, so, I'm sure you're aware the economy is just a really big talking point all over the United States right now. Prices and affordability just remain on top of hill for a lot of people. What would be your message to East Texans right now who maybe are concerned about the economy? And obviously, how would you fight for them in the state Senate there to make sure the East Texas economy for years to come stays steady and, most importantly, affordable for people around here?
Absolutely. Well, one thing that I've always felt is so important is to recognize that there are people that are hurt. There are a lot of people that are hurting out there. And the last thing that I would want to see our state government do is be a hindrance or something that is leading or adding to that pain. And so, since I have been in the legislature, I've always worked to make sure that we keep our spending under our statutory and constitutional spending limits, that we're not spending actually all of the money that we have available, that we're not raising taxes, which is why it's so important, I think, that our next state senator leads the fight to actually provide real meaningful property tax relief. When you talk about the economy and the hardships that people are facing, the number one issue that I hear about under this umbrella is, Trent, I'm having to go take out a home equity loan just to pay my property taxes. As an example, property taxes are too high. They are the biggest problem that we face, again, that I hear about on the campaign trail in East Texas and Southeast Texas. And so I believe we've got to have a state senator that is going to fight tooth and nail to not just control, but actually rein in our property valuations and provide real, meaningful property tax relief. Make sure that we're staying under our spending constraints. If not, and I would suggest cutting spending. I mean, I love zero-based budgeting. I mean, I wish we would get back to that in the state of Texas, to where we start with zero and then we build a budget that spends what we need to spend. And so I think you're going to see fiscal conservatism. I feel strongly about that continue in Austin during this next session. But we've got to make sure that government is not part of the problem as far as leading to people's financial hardships. And certainly I'm committed to making sure that we are not part of that problem.